are watching Where Are They Now with your host, Dianne Hart. Now here's Dianne.
Good evening. Welcome to Where Are They Now? I am your host, Dianne Hart. Tonight, I have the privilege of having a phenomenal woman as my guest, and that is Ms Claudreen Jackson. Good evening, Ms Jackson. How are you?
Good evening. I'm blessed. I'm thankful. And I so greatly appreciate you inviting me to be a guest on your show. And I cannot say how much I appreciate you being in politics in a political season. Bless you. And we need people like you. So I greatly appreciate you for that.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I greatly appreciate it. I mean, I enjoy being a servant to the people, so this is perfect for me. Before we get started, I see a big butterfly right behind you. What does that butterfly symbolize?
That butterfly is a poster of my book, The Butterfly.
Oh, okay.
And the important part of my book, The Butterfly, is that the artwork is my son's artwork. My Pervis Jr., who is handicapped by autism. This is his artwork. We just put the butterfly shape on it. Mm-hmm. So at one time he was doing artwork, but he stopped. He doesn't have our frame of reference. So it didn't mean anything to him. He started tearing up the pictures.
Oh.
So I started saving them.
Well, good. So you have a book that before we ever even got started, you have a book and it's called The Butterfly. So it's out right now?
Yes, it's my third book. I have another children's book that I published since then. But having a son who cannot function like we do gives me the energy to accomplish things.
Oh, I'm sure. Absolutely. Well, I got ahead of myself, so I would like to know a couple other things about you. Like, where are you from?
I was born in Detroit.
Oh.
I was raised in Pennsylvania, about 30 miles from Pittsburgh. And I came back to Detroit when I graduated from high school, and I've been here ever since. And I love Detroit. At first, I wanted to go back to Pennsylvania. I didn't like Detroit. I wanted to go back to Pennsylvania. And then when I went back to Pennsylvania, I wanted to come back to Detroit. I'm a Detroiter.
Say for life, I am a Detroiter. So
I was almost a Floridian, though. I was moving to Florida a few years when my husband was alive. We planned on moving to Florida because, as you know, he sang with the Spinners, and 3 Spinners were living in Florida during that time. So we had planned on moving to Florida.
So y'all contemplated moving to Florida, but it didn't quite happen.
Yeah, we picked out a house next door to Bobby Smith of the Spinners then in Orlando. We were in Orlando. It didn't come about, and I'm glad that it didn't, because we were moving next to Bobby Smith and his wife, Lorraine, Bobby of the Spinners and his wife, Lorraine, and we were going to be next door. They have since passed away. So I would have, and Pervis has since passed away. Wow. So I would have been down there by myself, nope. Unless I met you. But
that's right, you would have met me. So that worked out perfectly that you were not supposed to be in sunny Florida, but back up in Detroit. So you have family here in Detroit? That's where all your family is?
That's where my family has always been. And my mother was young when I was born. She was only 14. She doesn't like for me to talk about how young she was when I was born, but her cousin's mother ended up raising me, and that's how I ended up in Pennsylvania. I came back to Detroit in 1956, because I will mention my age, because I do want people to know that you can get a certain age, and sorry about that you can get a certain age and still have be able to function. I'm 85. I turned 85 in June.
Wouldn't anybody know it? That's for certain.
Well, my mother didn't like me telling my age. She was always saying, don't tell your age. But I want people to know that
that's right.
I'm an example that you can be in your 80s and still function.
How beautiful 80 look with functionality.
Well, thank you, darling. I got my help. I bought my hair, my teeth. But too much information. My children tell me sometimes.
As I sit here and I think about what you said about your mom being 14 and her not really wanting you to talk about it, it really is important. And those are the type of things that we have to talk about with our young people so that they understand. Listen, you don't have to do that. Back then, I had a child when I was 17. So I kind of know about having babies early. Try to instill in young folks today is it doesn't stop you. It should motivate you because now somebody else is depending on you. But go ahead.
Well, this is the last thing I'm going to say about politics. But since we have an agent of chaos running for the highest office, we need good people underneath. I'm nervous about this election. First election I've ever been nervous about in my whole life.
Don't be nervous.
Years.
Don't be nervous. We got this. Because we're going to turn out. We're going to turn out. I think that everybody at this point is beginning to realize there's something wrong with him. I mean, he's barely 80. And he doesn't have all of his mental faculty in place. And I think people are beginning to see that. I really believe that Kamala Harris will be our next president. And we need those downward ballot offices in order to really change this country. And I think people are just ready for a change. I know I'm sick of Florida with ban everything, ban abortion, ban books, ban conversation around slavery. Just it's too much.
Politics is now. But when I was growing up in the 40s and the 50s, the Federal Communication Commission, FCC, did not allow lies over the airwaves.
None of that. You would have been put off. But okay, I can't talk about politics. You and I are going to have that another day. I can always call you again, and we can do a show strictly on politics, what it was like as you have grown through. And we can talk just about politics, and we'll do that next couple of weeks on my campus show, where I'm talking nothing but politics from now to November 5th. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about your husband, how you got started in your foundation and that kind of stuff. I want folks to know who you are and where you are right now, what it is that you're doing.
Pervis Jackson, who was one of the founding original members of the Spinners. I was married to Pervis Jackson, and I married him when they were broke. They were referred to as broke doo-wops. I don't know if you've ever heard that term before, but people used to say, oh, you like broke doo-wops, huh? But I don't believe in killing anybody's dream. So I was helping him try to achieve his dream, but I didn't believe it was going to come about. But I'm so glad that I kept my mouth shut and helped him, because he ended up, things started coming true. The hit records started coming. The tours started coming just as he told me they would. And last year, 2023, the Spinners were inducted into the Motown Museum and also into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Wow. So he's been gone 15 years, but his visions are still coming true. So being with him has taught me that when someone has a vision and they work at it, it can happen.
That's right.
I would have thought it couldn't happen. And so when Pervis Jr. came along, Pervis Jr. was born in 1975. And he was my fourth child, the only one that was planned. He's the one that was going to be so easy. And then he turned out to be on the lower end of the autism spectrum. And when he was born in 1975, they'd been in institutions before then. So there were no people on the lower end of the autism spectrum in the community. And then PJ came along. And oh my goodness, not only was he on the lower end of the spectrum, he was behavior challenged, and he's 49 now. He still can't read, write, talk, or live independently. Right. But my husband, Pervis, I said he was the public person. I was the writer. But Pervis started pushing me to read my poems and get out, and because I was joining forums for parents of kids with handicaps. Trying to find out. I thought I was going to get him cured. I thought if anybody else cured their child with autism, my son would be cured. So he did not get cured. So I say that God did not cure him, but he cured me and grew me up. So I started the things that I wanted people wanted said. Pervis said, well, wife, if you want the things you want said, you're going to have to say it yourself.
Right.
We're talking back in the 70s and 80s. So I was driving up to Lansing, Michigan, capital of Michigan, for meetings with the Autism Society. I was a member of Governor Blanchard's advisory committee and also Governor Engler's advisory committee for developmental disabilities for people in the state of Michigan.
Wow.
We didn't meet with the governor, but we met with each other and made recommendations to the governor. And Michigan is a very good state for the things that they do for people with disabilities. Right. So I was there to help make my suggestions. I'm so glad of that. And because of my son and the teachers that helped me learn how to deal with my son, I went back to college and finished my degree, and I became a teacher.
No, that's right. Well, we're going to take a break, and then when we come back, we'll continue our conversation.
In a world like today, it's a rare occasion to be able to see young mothers like the ones that were around when I grew up. But they live on in memory to quite a few of us. And this song is dedicated to those who cherish that memory. Early one Sunday morning, breakfast was on the table. There was no time to eat. She said to me, boy, hurry to Sunday school, filled with the Lord of glory. We learned the holy story. She'll always have her dreams, despite the things this troubled world can bring. Oh, say, don't you know we love you, sweet Sadie? Place no one above you, sweet Sadie. Well, living in the past. Sometimes it seems so funny, but no money will turn your life around. Sweeter than cotton candy, stronger than Papa's old brandy. Always that needed smile. Once in a while, she would break down and cry. Sometimes she'd be so happy, singing with us and Daddy, standing the worst of times, breaking the binds with just a simple song. Oh, Sadie Mae, don't you know, still loving us all in your special way. Well, there's no one above you, sweet Sadie, living in the past. Oh, she's never sinning. In love, she's always winning. Yeah. My.
You are watching Where Are They Now? With your host, Dianne Hart. Now here's Dianne.
Welcome back to Where Are They Now? I have the pleasure and honor of speaking with Ms Claudreen Jackson. So, Ms Claudreen, let's continue to talk about what it was like. What kind of help were you getting that then got you to start helping other people?
I said he was born in 75. 75 was the year they quit putting people with severe handicaps in institutions.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to put him in an institution because, you know, that's where you put people like that. I didn't know they had closed the institutions. So now I was going to March of Dimes, Children's Center, all the agencies that help handicapped children weren't helping children with autism because they'd never had them before. So that's when the germ of starting the Pervis Jackson Jr. Autism Foundation started. But I needed so much help then that it never dawned on me that one day I would be able to give back some of the help that was given me. And that's what the Pervis Jackson Autism Foundation is for. We help lower income children with handicaps, not just autism.
Right.
And you can go to pervisjackson.org, PERVIS, pervisjackson.org. If you have a child with a handicap and you need help, fill out an application there, a request for assistance, and then you can be interviewed. And we don't give great big amounts of money, so you don't have to jump through a lot of hoops to get a donation from the Pervis Foundation. So we started, Pervis passed away in 2008. The foundation started in 2009 because we were already working on it.
Right.
He passed away. And I almost didn't do it. I said, well, Pervis is gone. He was my help. He was the one. We both wanted to do something.
Right.
Yes. The Spinners were humanitarians. I don't know if you knew, they had a humanitarian reputation. They were put a few students through college, and they did other humanitarian things. Big brothers and big sisters gave them an award. And so Pervis said, I'm a humanitarian. We're helping everybody. I can't help my own son. What can we do? So that was the Jackson Foundation got started.
Well, you have definitely been doing a good job of it. I actually got an opportunity to look at your website and see the kind of work that you all are doing. Absolutely. And, it's work to be very proud of because so many parents don't have the support systems that they need. We have that. We probably do have an autism foundation here in Florida. My niece has autism, so I'm very familiar.
Tell her mother that I said she's earning her star in heaven, because I know that those of us who are parents of children with handicaps, we're all earning our star in heaven.
I know you are. So what else would you like to tell me while I have you on here?
My students had learning disability, but they could talk. So we did a classroom book called The Magic Van, where my students did the drawings. We would start, my favorite place to go, it was called, I would start the sentence and they would finish it. And it was a lesson, but it just grew and grew and grew into a book called The Magic Van, which was published last year. And the Pervis Foundation presented them to Detroit Public School students for March's Reading Month.
Wow.
My students inspired it. It's a story about a teacher and her class that goes on a field trip. The first part of it is true, but my students inspired it. And the fact that I kept it for 20 years. I retired in 2003. I had been moving that book around, but I loved their artwork so much, and I loved the story so much that I finally got that one published. So, and it is on Amazon.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. Do you ever see any of those students that were in your class?
I've seen a couple of them. One showed up at my church one Sunday. She didn't know that it was my church. But I said my students had learning disabilities. That's special education. Special education sometimes is kind of overlooked or looked down on.
Right.
One of my students, the one that came to church, she was married, she had a baby, she was pregnant, and she was studying to be a nurse. A person with learning disabilities that was still striving. I so greatly appreciated that. But having students that had learning disabilities, what I had to do immediately is try to work on their strengths.
Right.
They had weaknesses, so you're trying to bring out their strengths, where their strengths were coloring and drawing. And so that's how the book came about.
Well, yeah, you've certainly been quite busy. Don't look a day past none of your age, and I don't know how you're doing all this stuff. Where are you getting this energy?
Working with people like my son. I want people to know also that in my 50s, I was a worn out, weary wreck. So if you get a certain age and you feel like it's all over, God can restore you. I retired from teaching at 64. I wanted to teach until 65. I don't think I could have made it another year. And I was so tired. I said, how am I going to make it? I want to live a long life. But I started doing what the nutritionists tell us to do. Getting more rest, drinking more water, getting exercise. My exercise of choice is yoga. And eating more fruits and vegetables, drinking water. I started working on myself to get healthier, and it worked. So it's never too late. And the nutritionist said that. They said, whatever your age is, it's never too late to improve your health. And so I am a witness. My health did improve. I felt better in my 70s and 80s. Don't give up. If you feel like you're wearing out because you're retiring, you got a whole new door opening.
That's right. What you say, so you get off somebody else's job and get on your own. Then it won't really be like a job.
My husband, when I retired, he was always trying to get me to write the book. That's the book I should have shown you, Inspired by Autism. He wanted me to write it, and I kept saying I can't write it because it's not a success story. In the autism community, a success story is the person can live independently and have a job.
Right.
So I kept saying, Pervis, I can't write it because it's not a success story. And his thought was, every autism story is not a success story, so you're writing for them. So I did write the book, and when you see Inspired by Autism, that's also his artwork.
Right.
People with handicaps, we think about disability, and my son has so many disabilities, but he also has an ability. Someone said that really appealed to me, that broken crayon, still color. But by his art, he was coloring. I said, well, that's so appropriate for him. You go into politics at one time. Pervis wanted me to go into politics. I almost did, but the campaigning and the having to be busy all the time, because I know I've helped people with campaigns.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I want to thank you for coming on and spending some time with me, but we're going to have to reschedule you so that we can just strictly talk politics. I really like to pick your brain on what it was like in 65. And you were a little bit older than me, so you got an opportunity to see some real major changes happening down through these last years.
I grew up in the 40s and 50s. There were no Black ladies in politics. Shirley Chisholm. Right. I know you're familiar with how she got a lot of first. She was the first
of everything.
Yes. So we know how brave she was, and you are too. I appreciate your bravery for even taking on a campaign. I appreciate your bravery for trying to help people.
Thank you very much. So they can find let's give them an email address for your foundation and how they might be able to reach out to the foundation if they have a need for a mini grant, understanding that it's not a huge bunch of money, but it's money and every dime counts for something that can help you.
Pervis Jackson, PERVIS, pervisjackson.org. You can request for assistance form. The website has changed.
Okay.
So I'm not as good on the website. Technology is not my strong point.
Not either.
The two Pervises, Pervis Senior, that taught me that my voice could be used. When I was saying, I wish they would say this and I wish I'd say that, he said, you got a voice, you
say something.
I didn't have the courage. Well, when my son came along and couldn't talk, and he's a big, loud, fast moving, he would be a target. The police were called on him one day. I said, I could have been one of the mothers crying, but he had walked out of the house. I didn't know. He was in his pajamas and barefoot. So a lady was trying to question him. He came back home, but she followed him and she called the police, not to arrest him, but to protect him. Right. But we situations with police.
Well, I hear that music playing. That means it's time for me to pack it up and go home. But I want to again thank you for being on the show with me this evening. I look forward to talking to you again very soon.
Thank you so much for having me, and keep up the good work.
You are. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Now listen, you all know that every Wednesday night you can catch me on the Lit TV network, on Roku, on The Opening Statement. And on Thursday nights, I'm on Detroit Hot TV on Where Are They Now? So please join us. Tonight's guest is Ms Claudreen Jackson, and I want to thank her for being on with me.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
It's a new day for Detroit radio. It's internet radio. Make sure you're streaming in your car. Terrestrial radio can't do what we do because we are setting a new standard in Detroit. The best Detroit artists are here, along with all your national favorites. The most music 24/7 by all your local favorites, like Anita Baker, Michael Henderson, Kim,
So how did you find your way back in
and the
my
Dramatics. If they're from Detroit, they're heard here. This is where Detroit turns for R&B from yesterday and today.
24 karat magic in the air.
Detroit Hot Radio.